Just a quick content warning before we start. This episode of The Filmmaker's Basement does contain discussion of sexual assault. Viewer discretion is advised.
The Film Basement is filmed in sunny West Hartford, Connecticut, in front of a live studio audience.
Welcome to The Filmmaker's Basement, where we have seen possibly one of my favorite movies this year. I'm Brandon.
I'm Andrew.
And we're going to be talking about some movies that came out this week, in addition to playing a game show later on, and then talking about some of the stuff that's coming out next week. And on that topic, I got to see the movie I've been most excited about this year, and that was pretty good to me, at least. Dune. Paul Atreides, a brilliant and gifted young man born into a great destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure the future of his family and his people. As malevolent forces explode into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resource in existence, only those who can conquer their own fear will survive. So I think this is actually the best adaptation of Frank Herbert's work we could have gotten. He's a, again, very prolific author who wrote Dune and all the other Dune sequels that came after it, influenced a ton of other science fiction properties that came after that. Only problem with this, trying to adapt this movie essentially, is that it is an incredibly dense work, and that's why it's kind of like floundered beforehand, and with a lot of people saying you can never make a Dune movie. And I think actually Denis Villeneuve did a great job of like taking the essence of Frank Herbert's book, splitting it into one part, and making something that's actually pretty accessible for people to go and see, at least from my own perspective. Because I know, Andrew, you went and saw this. You have a little different opinion on that.
Yeah, it's the first movie we both saw on the opening weekend, just because it's, it was a big movie coming out. So I was like, oh, I'll go see it. It's got a good cast. That's the one thing that I will say about it. It's a great cast. Like, there's a lot of high-profile actors and actresses in this movie. And I just didn't get it. Like, I'm watching it, and I don't know the source material for Dune. I never read the book. I never saw the original adaptation of the movie that came out in like the 80s or whenever it came out, the 90s. So I just didn't understand like some of the verbiage that they were talking about, and they don't really go into any explanation about anything. So like it was just I was just supposed to kind of be like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna accept it, and let's move on into this next part.
So what I will say is, as someone who has read the book, this is the most accessible version of Dune that exists. And I know that's not a satisfying answer, but that's kind of the problem with Dune, like I was saying. It is an extremely dense book. I think it's about 700 or 800 pages, and those 700 or 800 pages feel like 1,600 pages. Because there is just a lot going on in this novel. There are a lot of different perspectives we are cutting to, a lot of different people's thoughts we are seeing at the time. One of the phrases from the book that always stuck out to me is that this is a book about plans within plans within plans, wheels within wheels turning at all times. And that's kind of the problem with that's kind of my main problem with this movie, is that it is split into two parts, and that's gonna lead into why it's not nearly as successful as it should, and why I also think that this is the most successful version of Dune out there too, kind of in a contradicting way. Frank in Dune doesn't really explain a lot of what's going on. Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, of course, he kind of leaves you as the reader to figure out what's going on in the book. For instance, figuring out what the Bene Gesserit witches are. They're a collective of women who essentially kind of rule the galaxy behind the scenes of a lot of the great families. They're kind of twisting people, pushing them in certain directions, and also genetically manipulating people to form essentially this perfect human being that can see into the future and do all these other things. But Frank never outright says any of this. He kind of leaves you to figure that out.
I did kind of get that, because like there's parts in the movie where she's visiting multiple people and in different houses who are essentially not friendly to each other. So I'm like, oh, they're playing both sides.
Yes.
But the only thing that they want is for their fellow cohort, who is a part of this house, Atreides, and then her son to be spared. So like that's their whole thing, is like, oh, we want the our person and her offspring to be good, and everyone else, fuck them.
Because Paul is essentially this messiah figure who can see into the future, and he has all these abilities that no one else really has. And that's that comes up a lot later in the book. Unfortunately, more of that comes up later in the book as we understand Paul's fate and where he's going. Unfortunately, we didn't get to that in the first part of the movie, and that's what I think is going to be a problem coming when this movie comes out in the second part, is that when people do go and see it again, they're not going to rewatch the first part before they do that. And as a result, they're going to be completely lost as to what's happening in the movie. Not to say that the first part isn't really difficult to understand too. Mm-hmm. I can understand that, but it wasn't something I noticed going into it because, again, I've read the book a lot, so I know a lot of this stuff. But that kind of leads into the other stuff that I wanted to talk about, which are some of the instances where I think them holding back information actually worked. And that's another good example of it, with the scene with the Gom Jabbar. So for those who haven't seen the movie, there's this scene where Paul's essentially called in front of this woman who seems to be so much more powerful than anyone he's ever met before. Like, she literally speaks and he kneels before her in an instant, unable to control his own body. She commands his own mother to do things. It's wild. She introduces herself as this like leader person and essentially tells Paul to stick his hand in this box. And Paul does it against his will, essentially.
And no explanation of what is the box.
And then
put your hand in the box.
And then out of nowhere, she pulls out this needle, sticks it up against his neck, and says, "Hey, this is the Gom Jabbar. If you pull your hand out of this box, I'm gonna poke this into your neck, and you'll die instantly. Just do it." And this is a great example of how this is used in the book, because you are with Paul in this moment. You have no idea what's happening. You don't know what he's going through, and all of a sudden he's in a horrific amount of pain, but he cannot move, he cannot pull his hand out of his box, or else he will die. And you do not know why. You just have to essentially trust this weird woman who's causing Paul all this pain, and just hope that nothing bad happens to him. And eventually he succeeds. He realizes that it's all in his head, and he's like, okay, I can win this. I can win this lady. And he pulls his hand out of the box, and she explains to him, congratulations, you're a human now. A human who can control his own emotions and is not, like, afraid, and not realizes that pain is in your head. And
that's the other thing. They kept using the word human.
Yes.
Like, which is just weird, because, like, if you watch Star Wars, they're not humans. They never in Star Wars do you hear the word human.
Yes.
They are humanoid people. Like, so, like, they are... in fact, they're aliens, but they are humanoid, where they have limbs and like. So that's the thing. They're like humans, but everyone
in this movie is a human. However, and this is another bit of context that's a little bit missing from the book, and it's something that again didn't come up as much in the movie, mainly because they didn't have the time for it, probably because there's a lot of stuff they didn't have the time for to get to in this movie. Essentially, the Bene Gesserit don't see all humans as human. There are humans and there are animals, essentially. Animals are people who cannot control their emotions, mainly men, and could essentially, if they were to put their hand inside the box and try to face the Gom Jabbar, they would die. They would not succeed. Paul was able to control his emotions and realize that this is just pain. I'm not physically being harmed in any way, shape, or form. I can just feel the pain happening to me. I can control this emotion and I can suppress it. And as a result, he is a human because he controls his own fear, which is something that is unfortunately missing from the movie as well. But like I said, it's dense. There are things that are not going to be able to. There are things that are going to be able to make it in, and things that aren't going to be able to make it in. But unfortunately, that is not one of those things that entirely made it in. I will say there is another scene. I think they actually do use this really well too, and that's with the bull being referenced throughout the movie. I don't know if you noticed that going in. So in the books, Leto's father, grandfather, I don't really remember his name. He kind of had this passion for bullfighting in his youth. As this like king ruler figure too. He played this very dangerous sport where he'd fight bulls. One day it backfired on him so horribly that he died. And as a result, a young man who was entirely unprepared for the throne, Leto, was thrust into this position of power recklessly without any experience or training of how to be in this position. And that this plays into one of the themes of Dune, which is don't trust your leaders. And I know that sounds bad, but hear me out. One of the big themes of Dune, like I said, one of the big themes of Dune is trusting your leaders. All of the leaders presented in Dune are bad people. And that's actually one of the things I wish was played up a little bit more, especially with Leto. The Baron Harkonnen, for example. He's this horrible figure that kind of sparks a lot of these events that happened to Paul and his mother being exiled into the desert. He is a horrible man. He is horrible in every way, shape, and form. He inflicts pain on all the people around him. He is sinful in every possible way imaginable. He's not someone who should be in a position of leadership, and he should not have his power, but nobody questions it because he's the leader, and that's somebody who should be. He's apparently the person who should be in charge.
Is that Stellan Skarsgård's character?
Yes.
Okay. I also didn't understand how he was just floating everywhere. I thought his legs were really long.
No. So in the books, he has this kind of... He essentially floats around. He has this suspensor technology. You kind of see it in later parts of the movie, too. If you look on the back of his neck, there's a glowing red thing. And whenever he essentially lifts off, starts glowing red. And I actually like that. I think it added a really nice, like, ghostly touch to him. Because he is kind of the specter, like, crawling along the Imperium, spreading decay and disease wherever he goes. But going back to what I was saying about those, like, bad leaders, essentially, not trusting them, Paul's grandfather is a great example of that. He's this person who should not have been in this position of power, but he was put into it anyways, and as a result, he died, and he thrusted someone who was entirely unprepared for the position into that role, and put his entire kingdom at risk as a result. And that's kind of where Paul is going. I won't give spoilers, but that is kind of where his path leads down. But what I think wasn't as great was the fact that they didn't give Leto as much like time to develop that into his character, because that is very present in the book, specifically in that he is very image focused. He is focused on how people perceive him, not like ruling essentially, but like how he is perceived as he rules. There's a great example of this in the book where the minute he lands on Arrakis, his first worry isn't that the entire planet is a booby trap essentially for him and his people, that he has to get spice manufacturing back online. His first worry is, how is my public image doing? He talks to his PR people the second he arrives on the planet. Little things like that I wish were in the movie, and I think would have added more to his character, because he's not a good ruler. He's bad at his job because he's not focused on ruling. He's focused on how he looks. So that's one of the things I kind of wish they had played up a little bit more. I do think they did an all right job with it, by referencing the bull. I think if they had a scene like the PR scene, it would have been even more effective, because it shows that Leto has fallen into the trap of his father, essentially being a terrible leader and really not like being fit for that role. But overall, I still think this is the most accessible version of Dune. And I think for what it is, it did a good job, at least from my own perspective, of capturing what I would have wanted in a Dune movie. I do hope that when part 2 comes out, like maybe they'll do some kind of release where part 1 and 2 are combined into one. I know that's a lot, and that's a very long movie as a result, but I think that will do it a lot more justice, as opposed to being split into 2 very indistinct parts. But yeah, I would say, at least if you've read the book, definitely go see it. This will be the best adaptation you will probably get of this book. And if you haven't seen it, maybe wait for the second part.
Yeah, if you haven't read the book, just wait for the second one.
You might want to wait.
Like, you'll spend 3 hours going, what am I watching? Like, what?
I still think to a degree you can pick up on some of the
You
stuff
can pick
that's
up on a
happening
lot
on
of
it.
context clues. Like, I picked up on a lot of context clues, yeah, but I was like half the time I didn't understand the verbiage. Like I said, I couldn't understand what they were saying.
Yeah.
If you're gonna watch it, go watch it on HBO Max, because it's on HBO Max, and that's what I should have done, because then I could have watched it with subtitles.
Yeah.
Instead, I went to the movie theater because I was like, I got a reservation available to use for AMC. I'm gonna go see it on the big screen, and then I realized, like, at the end of the movie when I was looking up online information about it, I'm like, oh, it's on HBO Max. Why the hell did I just do that? So, yeah, watch it on HBO Max if you want. I mean, it's a good movie. Like, it's got a lot of action sequences in it. Like, I liked a lot of the action sequences, and like the story to it was good, but it's just like, it's a sci-fi movie with not a lot of explanation. So like, there's not a lot of exposition, which is a gripe with a lot of people, where they want exposition, or they don't want exposition in movies because they want to figure that out for themselves. But for a big sci-fi epic like this, you kind of need some exposition.
Either that or the second part to be out already, because I do think that will help a lot.
Well, so I'm glad that we're doing Dune this week and then my movie this week, because my movie came out last week that I went and saw, but now we're caught up because what I've planned on doing from here on out is putting out the podcast on Fridays. So like when we go to see like, hey, what's our next movies coming out? Those will be the movies that come out that weekend. Anyway, I went and saw The Last Duel yesterday. So I watched 2 movies this week. So Jean de Carouge is a respected knight known for his bravery and skill on the battlefield. Jacques Legris is a squire whose intelligence and eloquence makes him one of the most admirable nobles in court. When Legris viciously assaults Carouge's wife, she steps forward to accuse her attacker, an act of bravery and defiance that puts her life in jeopardy. The ensuing trial by combat, a grueling duel to the death, places the fate of all 3 in God's hands. This movie, if you haven't gone to see this movie and you are a film major, or if you just like the way that movies are made and you like that kind of aspect to it, you have to go see this movie. Because like, I'm not a film major, but I like watching how movies are developed and if they have a nice story to them. This movie was amazingly told. So the movie is told in 3 chapters. The first chapter, and it has title card at the beginning of each chapter. So it says chapter 1. And then the first chapter is titled The Truth According to Jean Carouge. And then it plays through some of the movie. Okay. The second chapter is The Truth According to Jacques Legris. And then the final chapter is The Truth According to Marguerite Carouge, who is the woman, Jean Carouge's wife. And then as it says The Truth According to Marguerite Carouge, everything else fades out except for the truth. So like in every other chapter, all the words fade out at the same time. But in the final chapter for Marguerite Carouge, every word fades out except for the truth. So it's kind of Ridley Scott's way of saying that, you know, this is what really happened.
So it's kind of like Rashomon, where like you're seeing the same story, but it's told from different perspectives every time you go into it.
And it's amazingly edited and directed and acted, because there are scenes in every single chapter or in 2 chapters that are the same scene, but they're acted differently.
Okay.
So the best example I can give is in The Truth in chapter 1 for Jean Carouge, the story where his wife Marguerite tells him that she was raped, and there's a lot of, excuse my language, but there's a lot of it's a movie about rape. I'm going to say the word. So in that chapter, when she tells him that she was raped, she's visibly upset. She's crying. And Jean is very consoling. And he asks her, like, he picks her up by her shoulders and says, "Are you telling me the truth?" And is like kind of yelling, and then just hugs her. And as to like console her. And then when you get to the 3rd chapter, where it's told from Marguerite's perspective, she's not visibly upset. She's not crying, but she wants to tell him what happened. And she tells him what happened as an act of kind of bravery and an act of like, no, I'm going to tell you what happened. When she does that, he gets visibly upset. And instead of picking her up by the shoulders, he grabs her by the throat and asks, "Are you telling me the truth? Are you telling me the truth?" And just starts choking her, and is just visibly mad and angry, and kind of just throws her down. And instead of consoling her like he did in his version, he basically says, "Get over here. We're going to have sex, because Jacques Legris is not going to be the last person to know your insides," pretty much.
Oh my
and I'm
God.
just like, whoa. So like I was like, wow, like that is a left turn from the first
pretty
chapter.
horrifying.
Because one of the other things that happened was in the first chapter. The best way to describe it is in the first chapter to the third chapter, because they're husband and wife, so like a lot of their scenes are the same. So like in one of the scenes, like when he comes back from war, she is very happy to see him, and she hugs him, and he hugs her, and it's all like wonderful and everything. And then in the third chapter, he comes home from war, and she's wearing this new dress that she bought, which is a very low-cut dress, so her bosoms are pushed up a little. And in the 1300s, that's really not kind of allowed. So, like, he is visibly pissed and just, like, blows by her without like saying anything or touching her or anything. So it was so well like directed and acted, and how the scenes are the same scenes but they're different. And I loved it. It's you'll like it if you like a period piece, because it's a period piece. It's based in 1300s medieval. It's got this like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings vibe to it without the fantasy. So it has a lot of it does have some war aspects to it from that medieval time period where it's bloody, it's gory. The duel to the death is obviously very like gory and like very well done and well written. And it's kind of just the way that Ridley Scott does things, because like he makes great movies. Like he's a really good screenwriter, and he didn't screenwrite this one, but he's a really good director. And I was surprised to find out that the screenwriters, two of them for this movie, was Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Yeah. Matt Damon, who starred in the movie as Jean de Carouge, he wrote the adaptation for it, and along with Ben Affleck, who was also in the movie. Which I mean, it's great. Getting to the more unpleasant things about the movie.
So let me ask you, actually, because I think you're going there anyways, but so how do they handle the topic of the rape? Because that is a very sensitive thing to be watching
someone get raped on a big screen is very uncomfortable. I'm kind of glad I went alone and not with like a date or like with someone else, because I don't mind going to see movies alone. That's how I kind of de-stress. But watching someone get raped, not once but twice, because it's told from Jacques Legree's perspective and Marguerite Carouge's perspective, is not a fun watch. And the way that they did that was actually really well done too, because from Jacques Legree's perspective, he thinks it's a game and she's playing keep away. And he did a similar scene with like some women of the night, if you will, earlier in the movie. So he's playing this little game, and he says, "If you run, I will chase you, or I will catch you." And so like he does this little game with like this prostitute earlier in the movie, and he does the same thing with Marguerite. And in his perspective, when she picks him up, you can kind of hear like a giggling, like Marguerite's giggling, and like she's making pleasurable noises because it's from his perspective. And then when you cut to her perspective of the act, she is terrified, and she is not having any of it, and it is not a good, like, it's very uncomfortable. I'm glad I wasn't like, I didn't buy any like popcorn or anything, because I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I was like, I'm very uncomfortable right now. But it's a rated R movie, so I mean, what did I expect about a movie about this subject? But the thing of it is like, it's not the greatest way to portray speaking out about someone, like about if this has happened to someone, because in the movie, she basically outright says, "I wish I never spoke out about this," because she has a child by the end of the movie. Wow. She has a child. So she's like, "I wish I had never spoken out about this," because her life is in the balance. If her husband loses the duel, she gets burned at the stake, burned to death, essentially. So and she has a child now who's going to become an orphan if both of her parents die. So she's like, I wish I never had spoken out about this. So that I could live with my child. And I'm like, that's not a great message to send to people if this had happened to them. But I get it, because you have to take into account that this is the time period. If this was a movie that was based in 2001 and 2002, yeah, not a great message to send to people because of the era that they're in. But this movie obviously was in the 1300s, and it was a different time back then, where, you know, a woman's word versus a man's word doesn't hold the same weight. Overall, I was kind of glad that the entire story wasn't revolved around Marguerite, because that's what the trailer seemed like it was. It was about these two men fighting over this woman. I thought the trailer made it seem like it was all about her, and it is kind of all about her. But I was glad that they told the entire story from Jacques and Jean's background, from when they were friends in the war, up until the point where one of them meets their demise. And it's told through, like I said, through 3 different pieces, and it's very well written and well told and everything. And there's, you know, there's parts in the story that are the same scene, but different things happen, and it's acted out differently. So, you know, I would go watch it.
Okay.
Like, if you just like how movies are made, this is a good one to watch. Just be forewarned. You will watch someone get raped twice, and it is very uncomfortable. So yeah.
Okay, so now if nothing played there, that means I cut out Pilot Wings this week, just so you know.
I got one right this week too.
I know, we're gonna see. I think I'm gonna keep it in, but just in case, I wanted to give myself a couple seconds to completely cut out of there.
Fair enough. There's a movie coming out on October 29th. I don't know if you see it down at the bottom. It's called Planet Dune.
I've never heard of this. What the heck?
A crew on a mission to rescue a maroon base on deserted planet turns deadly when the crew finds themselves hunted and attacked by planet's apex predators, giant sandworms.
I know exactly what happened here.
What is this?
I know exactly what happened here. There's this company out there that releases movies that are very similar to big blockbusters that come out. I don't know if you ever saw, there was the movie Battle Los Angeles.
Yes. There was another one called Battle LA.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do this thing where they release these movies that sound exactly like other big properties that are out at the moment, and that's exactly what's happening here. You son of a gun! Stop stealing my sandworms.
How did they get it to call Planet Dune?
Because it's not Dune, it's Planet Dune.
So it doesn't take place on the same planet. It's just
it just is gonna look exactly like that planet.
What is this movie?
It's probably going to be horrible because it's designed to be bad.
The trailer makes it look bad.
It's going to be bad.
If you want to put some of the trailer in there, the trailer looks bad.
Because what they're banking on happening is people will go see this movie instead of Dune, and they'll make a bunch of money off that.
Because it's called Planet Dune.
Yes, exactly. People will get confused.
Oh, God.
I hate that so much. Oh, man. But there is one movie I'm excited about for this week, and that's Antlers. Okay. Because I've seen the trailers for this movie for like 2 years now, and it looks, oh my God, it looks horrifying. So, in an isolated Oregon town, a middle school teacher and her sheriff brother become embroiled with their enigmatic student, whose dark secrets lead to terrifying encounters with a legendary ancestral creature who came before them. Essentially, it's this movie about this kid living in this abandoned house, like essentially neglected beyond belief, who feeds this monster or something every night. And this monster just, like, accepts that he lives there for some reason. It's not explained, and I assume it will be in the movie. But, like, the monster starts breaking out, and it starts hunting people. And this kid essentially cannot live without this monster following him all the time. And the teacher and, like, the cop essentially start digging into this kid because they realize his home life is horrible, and they kind of find out about this. And it just looks horrifying, like legitimately horrifying.
Speaking of this type of movie, did you go see Lamb yet?
No, I gotta watch it. I don't have time. I gotta see it. Maybe I'll review that. Maybe I'll do a double feature because I'm usually really quick about my reviews. So I'll do like Lamb and Antlers.
So I don't know what I'm gonna go watch this week because there's not anything that like pops out at me,
Yeah,
like at all.
It's kind of a dead week in comparison
So
to all the good weeks we've been having.
Right. There's a movie called The Last Night in Soho, which looks interesting.
Have you?
It's made by Edgar Wright, and I like Edgar Wright movies.
Have you seen the trailer for this movie?
I haven't.
So
I'm gonna watch
it
first.
It's really good. Basically, this girl is inhabiting the body of someone in the 60s. And she is living that person's life. This is a normal girl living essentially the life of a movie star. But what she doesn't realize is this woman's going to be murdered.
Oh.
So she is living in the body of someone who is going to die. And she's watching her murderer essentially follow her around. And it looks really good. It looks really atmospheric and like kind of fun, but also kind of like dreadful. That was another movie that was actually looked really good to me. But
if I don't go see that one, I'm probably just gonna watch the My Hero Academia movie because I like the I like My Hero Academia. I like My Hero Academia, so like it's coming out next week, so I'm like,
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you all for watching. Andrew, I know you have something to plug.
Yeah, sports and nonsense. So like I was saying with this podcast, it's gonna go up every single Friday morning. So that's what I'm gonna try to shoot for, and hopefully Brandon can get me the files to upload, which he's been pretty good about getting them to me before Friday, so that's good. So hopefully these will go up Friday morning. And then sports and nonsense, we usually record that week, but I'm going to try to put that up every Sunday before the football games for that week go on. So that's kind of like where my headspace is at for like posting stuff. So it's like we talk about the new movies upcoming for this week, and I'm going to post it in that week or on that day, and then we're going to talk about like the newer games that are going to be played that week, and they're going to go up that Sunday too. So, trying to get the ball rolling on like specifics and like, yeah. So like it'll come out at the same time on the same day, the same day of the week every single week, and that's that'll be good for everyone, so they're not like, where's the new episode? So
yes,
but yeah, go listen to Sports and Nonsense. I just posted one, the new episode will get posted a couple of days after this one. So
yes, and unlike most weeks, I also have something to plug. From our corporate overlord, Jimmy Lucars, who runs the Name Pending Productions YouTube and Facebook and all those stuff channels. So Jimmy is organizing a film on GoFundMe, and he's looking for people to donate to his thing. He's actually trying to remake one of the films he made while he was in college, and I'm going to pull up the description here. It's called Police 3, and it's a short film that tackles the issues of mental health in the military head-on. The description is, Sergeant Bailey has been in the Air Force for 10 years and has dealt with a lot. Her life seems to be crashing down around her, and she is posted alone. She's right about to end it all when she receives an unexpected visitor from her past. So I actually started in this movie when Jimmy was making it back in film school, and I gotta say the script is really good. It's a really good concept, and unfortunately he just didn't have the time or money at that point to really like invest into making it. But now he's trying to remake it, and he's trying to make it better and badder than ever. So if you could just go to his GoFundMe, it's called Police 3, created by Jimmy Lucars. I'd highly recommend you could donate to it. It's a great concept, and he's a great guy. It would really be doing us a solid to go help him out.
The link will be in the description for this episode and all future episodes. So if you're watching on YouTube, the link will be in the description. I'll also post it to the link in the audio. Hopefully that will work. I'm not sure how links work.
And remember,
CastBox.
Every little bit counts. Even if it's only a small donation, every little bit helps. So even something like $1 or $2, just donate. Please donate. Yep.
It's for a good cause, because like Brandon said, it goes towards mental health awareness in the military, which is very important. Speaking from personal experience, from being in the military and seeing people, including myself, struggle a lot. You've heard that term 22 a day. It's a real thing that and it happens in the military, and that's trying to want to bring awareness to. And if he can get that made professionally and put out to different film festivals, that'd be amazing.
Yes.
So
we're all for it. And on that note, I'd like to thank you all for watching this week on hopefully an episode that has a bit of pilot wings in it. I'm Brandon Gasparino.
I'm Andrew, and I will try not to make any more down movie reviews.
No, watch more. Watch all the good stuff. All right, thanks for watching, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Bye.